So I want to start right off the bat with this trial. What was your reaction when that ruling came down Friday? That initial reaction. You see this trial that's been going on. What kind of ran through your head with that?
Are you talking about the ruling? You mean the verdict, the
The
jury's
verdict
verdict?
for the murder charge. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I thought the jury's verdict was surprising, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense from a rational perspective as far as when you consider the social media uh, comments made by Mr. Perry.
And so when you look at that, guilty on the murder charge, not on the aggravated assault. So when you're looking at sentencing, that's going to come down. We don't know when. So basically, what does that next process look like? Is there witness testimony? What is that going to look like now in terms of sentencing?
The Judge Brown will consider all the evidence that was introduced in front of the jury at the guilt phase of the trial. And then both sides will have an opportunity to present any evidence that they believe is relevant to the issue of punishment. It could mean a prior criminal history. It could mean individuals who have good things to say about Mr. Perry. Either side can put in whatever they think that would be important for Judge Brown to consider in determining what the appropriate sentence would be for the offense committed by Mr. Perry.
So I want to move in. So, we move on from sentencing. I want to get your reaction, and not doesn't have to be political at all. I'm just asking, from to see a state leader call for that pardon within 24 hours of that verdict. Have you ever seen anything like this personally? And kind of what was your reaction to see Governor Abbott kind of calling for that pardon?
I have never seen in my 40 plus years of being licensed to practice law in Texas, both as a lawyer and a judge, I've never seen anything like the conduct and behavior of Governor Abbott seeking a pardon within 24 hours of a jury verdict. Typically, pardons are sought after the entire judicial process has run its course. That would mean not just the jury's verdict, but also the punishment assessed by Judge Brown and any appeals that Mr. Perry wished to avail himself of. So it is very premature for anybody to seek a pardon in a situation such as this, and it's absolutely unheard of in the state of Texas.
I think the appeals thing is really interesting. So, with them appealing, well, if they appeal, obviously, and stuff like that, moving into that, with the appeals going on and that possible pardon, can those two, and I know that the pardon is kind of unprecedented in that length of time, but can those two things kind of coexist with each other, those processes?
There is no prohibition between the pardon and the appeal going on simultaneously. There would be some type of inquiry made, apparently by Governor Abbott, to the Board of Pardons and Paroles to pursue and see about the viability of a pardon in this case. And while that was going through the pardon process, then the normal appellate process would take its place there in the Third Court of Appeals here in Travis County.
Last thing I want to ask about the pardon, as a former judge, what kind of precedent does that set? When you have a governor just moving forward on other trials. I know you still have some big trials coming up here in Texas, here in Austin. What kind of precedent does that set? Does it kind of look like it's like maybe undermining a jury? What does that mean?
I think it sets a terrible precedent. The individuals who participated in the trial, the lawyers on both sides, the judge, and especially the jurors, dedicated themselves to an act of public service. And I think that by seeking a pardon in a situation like this, it undermines the jury's participation in the process. And I think that, it's just very premature and uncalled for in a situation like this where Governor Abbott didn't attend the trial, does not know anything more about the trial than what the rest of us heard simply through the media. And I think that it is just very unfortunate that he has made this exceptional, an extraordinary request for relief of in the shape of a pardon in this case.
Absolutely. I want to ask also, this one might seem like a silly question, but there's obviously a lot of viewers wondering in terms of how much time could be left with a case like this? Of course, you're at the sentencing step, but if there's appeals, if there's this pardon that's coming within 24 hours of that ruling, I know this answer might be hard. So do you have any idea of like, would it be months, years? Like, what could that look like?
It typically takes months, um, maybe a year to 18 months for a case like this to be resolved in the Third Court of Appeals. And then there are higher courts that you could take it to, either side that was not satisfied with the results from the Third Court of Appeals. It could go to the Court of Criminal Appeals, could eventually, conceivably go all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So if that occurred, then it would be certainly years down the road before it would be finally resolved through the appellate process.
And then I want to know also, when we saw the charges, it was not guilty on the ag assault, guilty on the murder charge. Do you know the reasoning as to why he probably was not guilty on the aggravated assault? Is that because unfortunately someone ended up dying in this situation? Why would that kind of come to play?
Quite frankly, that is confusing to me as well, and it could very well be that the jury thought that by convicting him of the murder case, that the secondary and lesser offense of aggravated assault was not necessarily therefore worth pursuing in their deliberations, and they just went ahead and entered a judgment of acquittal for that offense.
And then my true last question.
Ask all. I think I'm kind of stumbling around, so you ask all the questions you
No,
want.
this is perfect. I just want to know, if we look at appeals and things of that nature, you said kind of on average 18 months, looking at like a year and a half, could be years, like you said, if it goes up the ranks. Do you know what that looks like in terms of possibly like the bond? Like, would he be in jail throughout that time, or can bonds be set and him be bailed out? What does that look like?
That is a really, really good question. Um, an individual who is convicted of a felony offense and who is sentenced to prison is eligible for bond if the sentence that he receives is less than 10 years. So if he receives a sentence of 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 years, then he would be eligible for bond. 10 years or more, he would not be eligible for bond, and he would wait in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice until his appellate process ran its course.